Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is another solo episode, and really I want to share a story about leadership and what I came to learn from leadership in the most unexpected way, not the kind that I was looking for, not the kind that you find in job descriptions or LinkedIn bios, but the kind that sneaks up on you and the kind that teaches you more about yourself than you ever expected. I really used to think and associate leadership with being or with belonging to the people who had the titles, the big titles, the managers, the VPs, the C-suite execs, the boardroom. But then I accidentally stumbled into it for myself. And what I learned about what real leadership is it has nothing to do with hierarchy, and it actually has everything to do with humanity. So I'm going to talk to you all about the women's resource group that I became a part of and what it taught me that I never could have imagined. So I've really always loved being the encourager of people, especially championing women. I love kind of being that hype girl on the sidelines and really helping them see themselves as capable, powerful. But I've always kind of traditionally done that quietly, like behind the scenes. I liked kind of living in the shadows and helping support my friends or colleagues with whatever they were working on and just really amplifying them in any way, shape, or form. To add to that, titles never really appealed to me too much. I loved certain leaders and would watch them with admiration in some ways, but the titles of VP or manager don't always, didn't always resonate with me because some of those leaders who I would watch that were brilliant at business and strategy were totally missing the mark on the people part. And the people were that was the piece to me that I just loved the most about business was supporting the internal employees and leaders so that you have this really rich culture. And I've always been connected to people. So I kind of, I never just really was someone who was chasing a title. And then came the pandemic. I had just moved to California. So this was a dream that had been on my heart for a really long time. I actually had put it in a manifesto. So that's a story for a different time. But there I was finally on living life on the beach. I literally could walk out my door and the beach was right there. And it was amazing. But I was also alone. And especially, how the pandemic was, we were all quarantining. And so there I was, spending a lot of time by myself. And I ended up realizing that the thing that I was really looking for at that time was a way to find more friends and connections and shared motivations. And I was envisioning women getting together, having coffee, and talking about personal growth. I didn't want to sit together with women and, complain about the pandemic or our relationships. That wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for women who were like-minded, who wanted to think differently, who wanted to talk about, yes, the hard stuff, but then what were we going to do on the other side of that? Driven women. And so I had this idea. Like, how could I create a coffee chat series that centered around personal development? Just a simple space for women to get together, to learn, to connect, and better themselves, basically, and share different topics and ideas. And so I came up with this idea. There was this women's group within the organization I was working for. And so I decided to approach the chair of that group one day and I was like, gosh, maybe I can try it out in this group. So I went to her and I said, is it Is this something you might be looking for? Do you think this idea could potentially serve the community? I'm looking at creating this as, a series. And she replied to my message and she was like, actually, this is exactly the type of thing that we're looking to add to the women's group. Can you start with this series like next month? So I was elated, so excited. She got approval from the group sponsor, and then we were off and running. And I really just dove headfirst into planning this first coffee chat. And let me just tell you, I obsessed over the slides, the PowerPoint deck I was creating. I spent way too much time on that thing. Okay. Like I spent so long creating the notes and the slides and overthinking it all and making it perfect. And finally the day came and I was able to, use this deck for 100 people. 100 people had signed up. So actually I should back up. So 100 people had registered and there was about 80 people in attendance. So 80 people were about to see this deck and, just see me. And I was anxious. But I was also riding an energy high. And I decided to go in with that, just like lead with the high energy that I really wanted it to be about. It was probably a little too much, but at the same time, I would rather come in with the first coffee chat being really high vibe and to really have people just get an idea of who I was. And so I I went into it, I gave it my all, and I was shocked. People were into it. People were responding in the chat. They were commenting. People were reacting in the emojis. And I got some amazing feedback after that first coffee chat. It was not perfect. I was messy. I was a little ramped up and excited, but it was such a good first event. And what that taught me, and I'm going to share all of my lessons at the end here, but just a quick note about that I will never forget is that leadership isn't about having it all together. In fact, sometimes it's the complete opposite. It's about showing up messy and just doing it anyway. So, okay, from there, I kept going with the coffee chat series. We kept doing this month after month with different topics each time, different themes. And I ended up really getting hooked, not on the logistics, like not on the event necessarily itself, but I was hooked on this feeling. I was hooked on what would happen as a result of those conversations. I was hooked on the messages I would get from women saying, "Thank you so much for creating this space. I really didn't know how much I needed that today." And every time I signed off from one of those events, I felt so full, just so seen and heard, but I just also felt like I was living into a purpose in a way. And so I didn't stop. And I really was building this for women, but I was building what I needed myself. And then by the end of the year, we always were surveying people. And at the end of the year, we would do a survey and just say, hi, community, like what of the events that we created were your most well loved? What would you like to see done differently? We just really got a good pulse on kind of where the community was at. And surprisingly, the community responded that they really loved the personal development coffee chats and that they wanted more. So I decided to continue that for the next year. But all while this was happening, I had also been having side conversations with the members of the community, but also just members of the organization. So I was talking to other colleagues, I was talking to different leaders themselves, and I was talking to the members of the group. Anytime I had a meeting with somebody and it was somebody I felt comfortable with, or there was just extra time, I would ask them questions about what they wish they saw within the organization, within the community, and around leadership specifically. And from all of that, and of course, the survey as well, I decided to create another event series, which was our Women in Leadership panel series. So, what we would do is we would spotlight women who were top leaders in the organization, from executives to other levels of leadership. And we featured their stories, we featured their experiences, and we really just got them visibility. And those panels were oh my gosh, they were some of my favorite events to host. They gave visibility to those leaders, but it was also incredible to witness leaders share their story and then come back to their own why. So that was another incredible event pillar. And from there, the programming honestly just kept expanding. So I kept having more conversations. We had these panels, we had the community or the personal development coffee chats. And then we expanded that to skills workshops and other types of master classes that we had and other events and storytelling and just different celebrations. Month after month, our group just continued to grow with this really rich programming. And then we also ended up, I ended up needing some help to support this. And so, what ended up happening is, from that one coffee chat, it really became a calendar of events that women ended up looking forward to. And then something I never expected happened, but the chair of the group, the woman who I had first approached about the coffee chat, she decided it was her time to move on. There was a different group she really wanted to help lead, and she figured her time with our group had come to a close. And so when she stepped down, I ended up becoming one of the chairs of that group and helping take her place. And so it was really surprising, to be honest, because being the chair was never my goal. It wasn't a title I was chasing. It wasn't something that I, especially when I initially approached her, I was not looking to become the chair. But in that moment, at that time, it just felt like the right natural position to step into. And I felt also just this overwhelming sense of gratitude for the trust and for the chance to just keep serving and for the community that had honestly given me so much that I still don't feel like I've ever been able to like repay them. So of course I stepped into that role and, looking back, I just have so much that I can take away from leading that group and just from leadership in general. I'm so glad that I had the last, I think, year and a half being a chair. And what I learned is that leadership isn't what I thought it was. It didn't begin with a title at all. It began with a spark, like an idea and a risk and taking a leap of courage. It really wasn't about having all the answers. It wasn't about being perfectly polished. It was about listening, creating relationships, creating connections, and letting the people shape what came next, letting the people actually lead. And I think most of all, leadership was really about love, the love for the women within the community, the love for the stories that we shared, sometimes the hardships that we went through, the challenges, the growth, just the amplification of one another and creating that together. The title might have come and gone, but the people and the laughter and those memories, that's something that I will take with me forever. So what I would leave with you is that if you are waiting for permission to lead, and I remind myself of this too, because it's hard to do, but if you're waiting until you feel ready or until someone else sees you as a leader, if you're waiting until you have the right title to feel like you have the enough expertise to go do the thing that you wish existed, stop waiting. Stop waiting. You already have it. Leadership is already happening around you, and leadership already is within you. The women's group taught me so much more about leadership than honestly any job description could have ever. It taught me more about leadership than my 17 years in the corporation. And I share all of these lessons with you as an invitation. I hope that you walk away from this and realize that you get to go create what you wish existed. I hope you walk away and you realize that listening deeply to others will allow you to be led. I hope you walk away from this and realize that leadership is all about loving boldly, loving people so hard, and again, I hope you realize that leadership isn't the title in your email signature. It's not in your bio on LinkedIn. It's the way that you touch lives along your journey. And here's kind of my last reflection for you, which is, what is one moment in your life where you felt led, where somebody else's courage or care shifted the way that you saw yourself? Because that is leadership. That is what it is all about. And you get to be that for somebody right now. So thank you so much for listening. I know this was a more serious conversation. And thank you for leading. Thank you to honestly every woman who has seen me, who has lifted me up, who has locked arms with me, who has given me a stage or a platform or a microphone, who has just believed in me a little bit more than I believed in myself. This episode is for you, and really, it's all for you. So a huge thank you to all of the women in my life, and that includes you, listeners. I think I'm going to leave you with that. And if you have a really amazing leadership story or a definition for yourself of how you see leadership, please reach out to me, because I love hearing from you and I love knowing your takeaways and your reflections from this. And I can't wait to see you again in another episode soon. Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you. There is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.